What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you see Jehovah's Witnesses forever. After 42 years as an elder in this organization, including 12 years serving on what they call judicial committees, I can no longer remain silent about what really happens behind closed doors. The last thing they want you to discover is the existence of their secret interrogation rooms, where private intimate details are extracted from members using methods that would shock any decent person. For decades, I sat in these rooms. I asked these questions. I participated in a system that I now recognize as systematically traumatic. Today, I'm breaking my silence because people deserve to know what this organization does to its members when they think nobody is watching. Let me be absolutely clear about my credentials before we continue. I wasn't just any member. I served as an elder for over 4 decades, appointed directly by the organization's headquarters. I conducted hundreds of these secret meetings they call judicial committees. I have access to their elders' manual, their confidential letters, their private instructions that regular members never see. Everything I'm about to tell you comes from direct personal experience and documented organizational procedures. The secret I'm revealing today isn't found in their public literature. It's not something they discuss in their regular meetings. It's the carefully hidden reality of what happens when someone breaks their rules, particularly their strict codes around relationships and intimacy. What I'm going to describe operates in every kingdom hall around the world, yet most people, including many members, have no idea about the scope and nature of these interrogations. They call them judicial committees, but what actually happens in these meetings would be more accurately described as intimate interrogations conducted by men who have no professional training, no psychological expertise, and no legal authority to demand the information they extract. These are not counseling sessions. These are not pastoral care meetings. These are interrogations designed to extract the most private details of a person's life, conducted by 3 men behind locked doors, with no oversight, no recording, and no appeals process that offers any real recourse. Let me walk you through exactly how this system operates, using a real case that perfectly illustrates the traumatic reality thousands of people experience every year. This involves a woman I'll call Sarah, whose story demonstrates every disturbing element of this hidden process. Sarah had been raised in the organization from childhood. Like most members, she believed the elders were appointed by divine direction and deserved complete trust and obedience. She had never been considered a problem member, but at age 25, she committed what the organization considers a serious transgression. She became intimate with her boyfriend, another member of the congregation. Overwhelmed by guilt conditioning that had been instilled since childhood, Sarah felt compelled to confess to the elders. This is where the nightmare began, and where you'll see how this organization systematically traumatizes its own members. The elders arranged what they called a judicial meeting. Sarah was told to arrive at the Kingdom Hall at a specific time when the building would be empty except for the 3 elders assigned to her case. She entered a small room with no windows, where 3 middle-aged men were waiting behind a table. Sarah sat alone on the opposite side, facing them. What happened next would be considered inappropriate in any professional setting, yet this organization has normalized it as standard procedure. The questioning began immediately, and it became clear that these men intended to extract every intimate detail of Sarah's private life. The first elder asked when the intimate contact occurred. Sarah provided the date. The second elder asked where it happened. Sarah explained it was at her apartment. The third elder asked who initiated it. Sarah said it was mutual. But this was only the beginning. The questioning became increasingly invasive. They demanded to know if this was planned in advance or spontaneous. They wanted to know if similar things had happened before. They asked how many times intimate contact occurred during that encounter. They asked what specific acts took place and in what order. Sarah was shocked by the personal nature of these questions, but she had been conditioned since childhood to view these men as divinely appointed authorities, who had the right to ask anything. When she hesitated to answer certain questions, they reminded her that Jehovah could see everything anyway, so she might as well be completely honest with his appointed representatives. The questioning continued for over 2 hours. They wanted to know if she had discussed these intimate activities with anyone else. They asked if she had been drinking alcohol beforehand. They inquired about her state of dress when the encounter began. They asked if music was playing and what kind. They wanted to know who removed clothing first and how. But perhaps most disturbing of all, they asked if she had ever considered involving additional people in intimate activities. When Sarah expressed confusion about this question, they clarified that they wanted to know if she had ever fantasized about or planned group encounters. They asked if she had ever discussed such possibilities with her boyfriend or anyone else. These questions continued despite Sarah's obvious distress. She was crying, trembling, and repeatedly expressing that she felt ashamed and wanted to make things right with her conscience. But the elders showed no mercy. They explained that they needed complete information to determine the proper discipline and to understand her spiritual condition. They also questioned her about her childhood, asking if she had ever engaged in any inappropriate touching with other children or if any adults had ever touched her inappropriately. They wanted to know about her thought life, asking detailed questions about what she fantasized about and how often. They asked if she had ever viewed adult content and what specific types. The psychological impact on Sarah was immediate and severe. She described feeling violated, humiliated, and confused about why these men needed such explicit details to determine her spiritual standing. She had expected counseling or perhaps a brief acknowledgement of wrongdoing, but instead found herself subjected to an interrogation that felt more invasive than any medical examination she had ever experienced. After the questioning concluded, the elders asked her to wait outside while they deliberated. Sarah sat alone in the Kingdom Hall lobby for 30 minutes, replaying the traumatic experience and wondering if this was really how divine justice operated. When they called her back in, they announced their decision. She would be disfellowshipped, meaning complete shunning by every member of the organization, including her own family. Her name would be announced from the platform at the next meeting, marking her as someone who had been expelled for wrongdoing. Everyone she had ever known in the organization would be required to treat her as if she no longer existed. But the trauma didn't end there. The organization's policies require that these judicial decisions be reported to headquarters, meaning Sarah's most private information was documented and sent to men she had never met at the organization's facilities. Her case would be kept on file indefinitely, available for review by any elder who might need to evaluate her in the future. This case illustrates every element of systematic trauma that this organization inflicts through these secret meetings. Sarah experienced psychological violation through invasive questioning. She endured spiritual manipulation through claims of divine authority. She suffered social destruction through public shaming and family separation. And she faced long-term surveillance through permanent documentation of her private life. What makes this even more disturbing is that these procedures are not aberrations or mistakes. They are official policy, documented in the organization's elder manual and practiced consistently in thousands of congregations worldwide. The questioning techniques I described are specifically outlined in their confidential instructions to elders. The organization trains elders to ask these invasive questions under the pretense of determining genuine repentance. They claim that understanding the full scope of someone's actions is necessary to provide proper spiritual help. But anyone with basic training in counseling or psychology would recognize these methods as potentially traumatic and therapeutically counterproductive. Professional counselors are trained to create safe spaces where people can process guilt and shame in healthy ways. They understand that shame often perpetuates problematic behaviors rather than correcting them. They know that detailed questioning about intimate matters should only be conducted by qualified professionals in appropriate settings with proper safeguards. But Jehovah's Witnesses have created a system where untrained men conduct intimate interrogations with no professional oversight, no ethical guidelines beyond their own policies, and no accountability to any external authority. The results are predictably traumatic for many who experience these meetings. The psychological impact on Sarah persisted for years after her disfellowshipping. She struggled with depression, anxiety, and difficulties forming healthy relationships. She reported feeling violated and confused about sexuality and intimacy. She experienced what many describe as religious trauma syndrome, a condition recognized by mental health professionals who work with former members of high-control religious groups. Sarah's case is not unique. During my decades as an elder, I witnessed hundreds of similar interrogations. I saw teenage girls questioned about intimate touching while their parents waited outside. I saw young men reduced to tears as they described private struggles with normal adolescent development. I saw married couples forced to detail their intimate lives to justify their request for divorce. The pattern is always the same. Members are conditioned to view these interrogations as necessary and godly. They are taught that resisting or questioning the process demonstrates spiritual weakness or lack of repentance. They are told that submitting to invasive questioning proves their desire to be right with their Creator. But the reality is that these meetings serve organizational control rather than genuine spiritual care. By extracting intimate details, the organization creates comprehensive files on members that can be used to maintain discipline and compliance. By traumatizing those who break rules, they create powerful deterrents that keep other members in line through fear. The questioning techniques also serve to normalize organizational authority over the most private aspects of members' lives. When someone submits to detailed interrogation about intimate matters, they cross a psychological threshold that makes future compliance more likely. They learn that nothing in their life is private if the organization decides it needs to know. This is why the organization fights so hard to keep these procedures secret. They know that most people, including many of their own members, would be horrified if they understood what really happens in these meetings. They know that parents would think twice about raising children in an organization that subjects young people to such interrogations. The secrecy is maintained through multiple layers of control. Only elders have access to the detailed procedures outlined in their confidential manual. Members who experience these meetings are often too traumatized or ashamed to discuss them openly. Those who do speak out are typically dismissed as bitter former members who can't be trusted. But the evidence is overwhelming when you know what to look for. Talk to any former elder who is willing to be honest, and they will confirm these practices. Examine the organization's own literature carefully, and you'll find references to these judicial procedures, though they're described in sanitized language that conceals their true nature. Most importantly, listen to the testimonies of those who have experienced these meetings. Their stories are remarkably consistent across different time periods, different geographic locations, and different specific circumstances. The details they provide about questioning techniques, room arrangements, and psychological pressure match exactly what is outlined in the organization's confidential instructions. The organization's response to criticism of these practices reveals their true priorities. Rather than reforming procedures that clearly cause trauma, they have focused on tightening secrecy and controlling information. They have warned elders against discussing judicial procedures with anyone, including their own wives. They have threatened legal action against those who leak confidential documents. They have also implemented what they call theocratic warfare, which allows them to mislead or lie to outsiders about their practices when they believe it serves organizational interests. This means you cannot trust official denials or sanitized explanations of these procedures. The only reliable information comes from confidential documents and first-hand testimony from those who have participated in or experienced these meetings. Understanding these hidden practices is crucial for anyone considering involvement with Jehovah's Witnesses, or anyone trying to help a friend or family member who is already involved. The organization presents itself as a loving spiritual family, but behind the public facade operates a system of control that would be recognized as abusive in any other context. Parents need to understand that joining this organization means potentially subjecting their children to intimate interrogations by untrained men if they ever step outside organizational boundaries. Adults need to understand that membership means surrendering privacy and autonomy over the most personal aspects of their lives. Mental health professionals need to understand that clients from this background may have experienced systematic trauma through these judicial procedures, even if they don't initially recognize it as such. The normalization of invasive questioning and the conditioning to view it as loving discipline can make it difficult for survivors to identify and process their experiences appropriately. The broader public needs to understand that this organization, which presents itself as wholesome and family-oriented, operates secret procedures that would be considered inappropriate and potentially illegal if conducted by any secular authority. The fact that they claim religious exemption does not make these practices less harmful to those who experience them. This is the secret that Jehovah's Witnesses desperately want to keep hidden. Not their doctrinal beliefs, which they discuss openly. Not their organizational structure, which they describe in detail. But the systematic trauma they inflict on their own members through invasive interrogations conducted by untrained men, with no professional qualifications and no external oversight. The time has come for this hidden reality to be exposed. Too many people have suffered in silence for too long. Too many families have been destroyed by an organization that claims to value family unity above all else. Too many young people have been traumatized by procedures that serve organizational control rather than genuine spiritual care. As someone who participated in this system for decades, I can no longer remain silent about what I know. The weight of knowing how many people I helped traumatize through these procedures is something I carry every day. But perhaps sharing this information can help prevent others from experiencing the same trauma and help survivors understand that what happened to them was not their fault. The secret is out. The last thing Jehovah's Witnesses wanted you to know has been revealed. Now you understand what really happens behind those closed doors, in those empty kingdom halls, when ordinary people are subjected to extraordinary interrogations by men who claim divine authority but demonstrate very human capacity for causing psychological harm. This knowledge comes with responsibility. If you know someone involved with this organization, especially young people who might face these procedures in the future, please share this information with them. Help them understand what they might be signing up for before they make commitments they don't fully understand. If you are a mental health professional, please educate yourself about religious trauma and the specific practices of high-control groups like Jehovah's Witnesses. Your clients may need help processing experiences they have been conditioned to view as normal and necessary. If you are a former member struggling with the aftermath of these experiences, please know that your trauma is real and valid. What happened to you in those rooms was not acceptable, regardless of how it was justified at the time. Professional help is available, and recovery is possible. The organization's greatest weapon has always been secrecy. They maintain control by keeping their most harmful practices hidden from public scrutiny. But secrets lose their power when they are exposed to light. Today, their last secret has been revealed, and they can no longer hide what they do to their own members in the name of divine justice.